Good morning. Welcome to the Science of Mind class here at CSLDallas. I'm Dr. Petra, and we are in the introduction of the Science of Mind. We're also sitting in this beautiful art by Terry Becker from the DFW area. She's an interior designer, and she's having her little artist reception after our celebration this afternoon. And so if you're in the DFW area, come down for the celebration or come down right afterwards and visit with Terry. So we're super excited to be carrying on with our introduction. We're in the introduction, what it does. And so we talked in the last chapter about the thing itself, that infinite push, that infinite impulse, that infinite love, which is the one infinite reality, and that it's everything. And this one impulse is the very desire of life to express, to create, to grow and become things. And what it does is that is what life does, is it becomes. And it is forever expressing itself. And it's forever expressing itself through nature, through all of creation, and of course, through us. And so what we're exploring in this chapter is the fundamental premise about this expression of life. And the idea here that we're talking about is that despite the fact that it's a oneness, or paradoxically, the fact that it's a wholeness that we talk about, this one infinite reality, includes everything. In the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes uses the term, this is a dual unity, love and law, a dual unity of the spontaneous movement of life toward creation and the principles that allow creation to unfold in some orderly manner, so that what is created is actually an outpicturing of the actual impulse of this desire of life to pour itself into creation and to become everything. And so this idea of a dual unity is one of those paradoxes that everything in the Science of Mind or metaphysics at all resolves itself into this paradox. Actually, it's the truth of life itself, because there's always being and becoming. There is the impulse, the spontaneous choices, and then there's the lawful action and the outcome that is in relationship to or corresponding to the impulse. And so love rules through law. Love and law, or presence and principle. We're actually going to talk about this quite a bit more in our celebration today when I talk about in what do we trust. So love rules through law. So we come to understand that all is love, yet all is law. Love is the divine givingness. Law is the way that divine givingness unfolds in a lawful, orderly manner, in something that can be trusted and can be understood. Love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. So how can we get a hold of this dual unity? Love is spontaneous. Law is impersonal. Well, we could take the way our own bodies work, right? And there is an automatic action of the principle of life moving in our bodies. Our heart beats, our lungs breathe. However, we can spontaneously engage and shift those things. We can breathe slower or faster. We can also unconsciously become upset about something or very happy, and our heartbeat will actually change. We know that with meditation and stress reduction, we can ourselves lower our heartbeat. So we have the impersonal action, the automatic action, and we have the spontaneous engagement, right? We don't want to understand impersonal as somehow removed or uncaring or yeah, what is impersonal sometimes has that feeling of detachment. I would say that a better understanding is the automatic action, this automatic action of these laws, that they are like any other natural law. They are utterly available to everybody. They're constantly present. They're constantly in action, right? Doesn't matter who you are, your background, your ethnicity, whether you're spiritual or not, whatever, it doesn't matter, right? The law of gravity doesn't pay attention to who you are when you put your foot out of bed. It simply is operating, right? That's what it means. And so we have these impersonal or automatic ways in which the spontaneous impulse then becomes something, right? The spontaneous impulse of love and beauty and joy to express themselves then outpictures through this process. So we should study the nature of reality with this in mind, and in this we shall avoid two grave mistakes. So these are the mistakes we want to avoid. The first is either viewing life as made up of only mechanical laws, right, which basically gives us a random universe where atoms are simply crashing into each other for no reason whatsoever and making reactions, or viewing it made up only of spontaneous actions, irrespective of law and belief. And this belief is when we think, well, if I'm just good, then something outside of myself will magically make it different. If I appease something outside of ourselves, then it will magically be fixed. And so we have to understand that these two things, the mechanical law and the spontaneous actions, are actually a dual unity. These two things are simultaneously true. Just like we can say it's simultaneously true that we're a spiritual being as well as having a human experience. Or we can say it's simultaneously true that we are, some of us are both a parent and a child at the same time, right? Those things are simultaneously true. We have children, but we also have parents. And so all of these things, this is the dual unity. And we do not want to be afraid of thinking that we are falling into duality, which is actually a sense of separation. What this is a recognition that the wholeness is so big and infinite and complex that to speak about the wholeness, we actually have to use more words. Just as we are big and complex, and we can talk about ourselves as a human being, but then we like to talk about our physical body and its health. We like to talk about our emotional state, and we just fell in love. Or our mental state, right? We're thinking about, creating something, and we're all involved in that. Or we can talk about our spiritual state of being calm and connected. And we talk about those things as if they were separate, and yet all of that is a part of us and a part of the experience that we're having. So that life contains these two fundamental characteristics: an infinite spirit operating through an infinite and immutable law. Cosmos and not chaos finds an eternal existence in reality. Love points the way. Law makes the way possible. So love is that impulse of life toward life, for life. And so we recognize it as love and joy seeking to be expressed, and beauty seeking to be unfolded, and harmony outpictured, right? That's the impulse. And then the way that shows up is in a lawful manner. So if life is moving in the direction of expressing harmony, right, then eventually everything in nature comes into balance, provided, of course, there are no other influences, which, of course, is what we're doing today with our climate. But left to its own devices over the span of geological time, right, life is always coming into balance. There's the seasons and cycles of life, but they're always coming back into harmony with each other. And for the express purpose of more life, of life being expressed, of life continuing to evolve and grow. And so this really accesses the science part of the science of mind, or the science of consciousness. It takes it out of the either dogmatic or superstitious way of engaging with the nature of reality. A dogmatic way would be there's only, you must do these things, see life this way, behave this way for life to work out. Or a superstitious way, oh my God, if I don't do this or that or the other thing, somehow I'm either going to be punished or for sure it's not going to work out. Right? The scientific method helps us access this sort of lawful, principled way in which the universe operates. So we have to then take a look at what is it about the scientific method, or the science part of it, that is being that we are getting a hold of here. And so this really is part of the fundamental impetus for the science of mind. The question that was so significant for Dr. Ernest Holmes was, why are some prayers answered, not others? Because he had studied a lot. And he was studying the golden thread and seeing how so many of the mystical traditions, philosophy, science, were all trying to answer the same questions. And yet, some people's prayers are answered and others are not. And that became a burning question for him. And if there's not a deity out there that we have to please or appease, it's not a super person, but more of a beingness, there must be a different answer. There must be a different answer for why some prayers are answered and not others. And so the aspect, the science aspect, begins to help to answer that question. In the scientific method, if you have a idea or hypothesis, right, you set up an experiment and you use the principles, the laws of nature to follow through on your experiment, and your hypothesis is either proved or not proved. And if your hypothesis is correct and your experiment is well set up, not only will you prove your hypothesis, but anybody else, anywhere in the world, at any time, can repeat that same experiment. It doesn't say, oh wait, you're doing that experiment in Japan or Germany or Australia or wherever. No, I don't think I'm going to work for you. Well, you weren't very nice to your mother this morning, so I'm not going to work for you, right? It's the scientific method. If it's repeatable and duplicatable, then we are beginning to unearth some of the fundamental principles that underlie whatever it is that we're working with, right? And in this case, we're looking for the principles that underlie life, the nature of reality. How did nothing become something? And why are we here? And what in the world are we doing here? So the scientific method helps us begin to explore, discover, and experiment with the principles and laws that seem to be revealing themselves. And it is in the application of them and the practice of them over and over and over again that we begin to prove to ourselves that yes, there is a spontaneous action, but there is also this automatic principle or law that is operating. So these two things come together in the process of creation, whether it's the macrocosmic creation, but of course we're much more interested in how we participate in this. And this is the last paragraph. We should not overlook the significant fact that it is the mind which discovers and makes use of the mechanical laws. And remember, we're translating to a certain extent mind into consciousness. It is the mind which discovers and makes use of the mechanical laws. Is this mind the spirit? Is not this mind the spirit in us? We can never completely fathom the infinite mind. We shall always be discovering new lands. Consequently, evolution is an eternal unfoldment of the more yet to be. Right? So it's as our consciousness, as we discover these mechanical laws, we are able to create at different levels, at higher levels, at more expanded levels, however we want to say that. The laws and principles governing flight have been around for ever as long as the earth has been around. And birds automatically and spontaneously discovered the principles of flight without understanding them. And along the way, human beings started to be curious about that, and over time discovered those same laws and began to apply them, right? Which is why we can now fly to Europe or fly to Asia or fly to Africa or fly wherever we want to fly, because those laws were discovered and understood. It's not that we made them up. It's not that they weren't there before, right? And so as our ability to understand more of these laws and principles, our experience of life expands. Well, this is also true then, of course, on the spiritual side of life. The more that we understand, discover, explore, and play with these various laws and principles, the more life expands, the more our life expands, and the more we contribute to the expansion of humanity. So a dual unity, love and law, presence and principle. So here's my question to you. Which side of that do you tend to fall on? Because it's challenging to hold a dual unity in our consciousness. And often as we are growing through our spiritual journey, we tend to fall on or emphasize one side. We tend to be very much about the use of the law. We're going to manifest things. We're going to create things in our life. Or we are very much about feeling the impress of spirit, and we're going to allow it to unfold, and we're going to let life and love be the way in which we show up in the world. Which of these two do you tend to fall on? Or what does it feel like when you are equally engaged with both of them? Because that's really the place we want to get to. But first we might want to explore, where do we tend to fall? What does that feel like? And then the second piece is, what does it feel like when we are actively engaged in both, this dual unity? All right, well, I hope you've had enough coffee to have this conversation with me. So we're going to turn to Ryan, say good morning, Ryan, and good morning to Richard and everybody in the room and all of you out there, and see what's going on.
Yes, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. My name's Ryan, and for those here in the room, welcome. Thank you. Oh, hey, Richard.
Uh-oh.
What
happened?
We're coming back. We're blue. Oh my God, we're back again. All right.
Something happened.
Hello, technology.
Yep.
Yeah, we got it. Yes, we are fine. So, once again, my name is Ryan, and hello to everybody in the room, and thank you for joining us all around the globe. So glad that you guys can join us today. And for those who are here in this room, and for those who are here online with us, Just a reminder that this is an interactive discussion, so we encourage you to ask questions and tell us funny jokes so we can laugh a little bit, like the joke that Richard just played on us. He said, you know what, I don't feel like doing this today. Click. Haha, Richard, that was great. For the folks that are online, if you want to participate, it's really easy. You can hit the raise your hand icon if you're in the Zoom room, and I will bring you into the room. Or you can always leave your questions inside of the chat. And the same goes true for those who are on Facebook. Please feel free to leave your comments and questions inside of the chat, and I can bring those into the room as well. And for everybody here in the room, can I get 2 hands in the air this morning?
Yay!
It just helps the blood flow, right? Yeah, there we go. Richard's about to cut us off again. All right, so if we have anybody here in the room, would you like to answer the question? Looks like we do. The iconic Richard is gonna go over there and help you with the microphone. Please remember to say your name and so the folks online can hear you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This is JL.
Good morning.
You said, how does it feel to be, what side do you lean towards? And how does it feel? Thinking on that, it was like the law, you know, how you can manifest things. When I lean more towards that, it is a tad bit more stressful in a way, because I'm very conscious of my thoughts, and every thought that's not appropriate, I'm like, nope, don't want to put that there. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's more like I'm too focused on what I'm doing to enjoy the process. And then when I go into both of them, it seems like a better flow.
Yes.
Of the process. You know, I know those thoughts are going to come up, but that's okay. Love those thoughts. Thank you for being there. Bye-bye.
Yes. Lovely, right? Lovely. We can, when we get very overly invested on the one side, we can think, I'm making it happen, and oh my God, everything has to be perfect, those kinds of things, right? Although it does actually really empower us to recognize that while we become obsessed about the negative thoughts, what we actually want to do is pay attention to the positive ones that are in alignment with where we want to go and what we're doing. And when we are bringing that love impulse into it, right, that allows for compassion, a little spaciousness in the process, yeah, makes that a little bit less stressful. Beautiful. Thanks, JL. All right, comment out here.
Yeah, I see we have Armando. Armando, you want to come in and join the conversation?
Good morning, Armando.
Good morning, Dr. Petra. Good morning, everyone. This is spot on, because I was hoping I was going to be able to share about this experience that I had this week. It was an aha moment. It was a sense of discovery, but then yet it was a sense of affirmation, where I'm starting to see, what I'm starting to realize is, or experiencing, is when my internal messaging is now matching the external messaging. And I would say I fall more on the law and principles. I feel like I excel quite a bit in that area because I see results, but I also allow love and spirit to guide me as well. And so my experience is, what I've been noticing is that in most recent months or weeks, I've seen people show up in my life expressing love to me in ways that I'm not accustomed to. But that is actually something that I would do. I would drive an hour to just drop off something as a surprise, right? And so I've never really gotten to experience that. And so what I'm understanding more and more, well, why not? I show up every day. I give every day into the world. I should be receiving that back. And it's, as I see that my internal, my external are matching more and more, I feel like, is that being one with spirit, one with God? Is that my life expanding and elevating to a higher level, that because I see all of this love around me, and then the principles and the law working in such a beautiful way that I get to sit back and be in deep, profound gratitude. and to be able to acknowledge this experience. And I was hoping I could make sense and put my finger on it. And I think this was it right here, this moment. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Oh, Armando, thank you for sharing with that. And you have, I think, described beautifully what happens when we are actively engaged in this dual unity. Both things are simultaneously true. Because yes, you are one of the most amazing manifestors. I have watched you grow in your dedication, diligence, dogged determination to grow in the use of the manifestation process for the good of you and your project and the people that you are serving through the cardboard project. And I have also witnessed you listening to spirit. Call that person. Oh, ask these Bank of America people to give me, computers or money or Microsoft and then, right? And that's the wisdom and the guidance. That's the love impulse. But you have been so dogged in the manifestation. These two things play together. And it's a beautiful dance when they're playing together. And when we've done that, do you see what we've done is we've grown consciousness. That's what we're doing. We're expanding our life and we're growing consciousness. Ultimately, we can simply sit back and be grateful for how it's unfolding. Because what I know is that when we're in the dance, we never stop intending and we never stop listening. Right? And so those two things are happening simultaneously, right? We're intending and we're listening. And I've watched the process, Armando, for you in particular, and I know how diligent you were. And so, JL, I'm going to go back to you and your comment, it's stressful. Yes, actually, when we first start doing this process and we first start realizing that the law is responding to our thoughts and feelings, it can be exhausting. But so's going to the gym. When you first start doing it, right? When you first start doing the gym, it's exhausting and you're, and I'm, something aches and you have to and you just have to work at it and work at it, work at it. And then you're like, wait, this isn't so bad. I'm actually getting stronger. I'm actually doing better. And there's an expansion, right? And so the love part isn't to undermine the need for the diligent, disciplined, dogged determination to pay attention to what we're intending, what we're thinking and feeling, and how that might be or not be in alignment with what we want. But the love allows us not to be afraid of those thoughts, to be compassionate of them and say, thank you, bye-bye. Right? We don't have to resist the thoughts. What we get to do is say, no, that's not the truth for me anymore, right? But there is a diligent effort that's required, just as it is required to learn to differentiate, am I listening to the push of life, or am I listening to the fear of my ego? Or am I listening to the aggrandizement of my ego? Right? We have to actually learn the difference so that we can feel and sense and hear, however we individually do that impress, and how that impress is guiding and directing us, and how love wants to unfold through us. And the dance becomes more and more, let's see, let me start that sentence over again. Our life, as Armando, you shared, our life becomes more and more a reflection of the dance. The more that the dance, we're in that dance of these two things, then that inner and outer reflection come more and more and more into alignment. And then we're actually having to manifest less specific things, and we are focusing on the unfolding of various areas and aspects of our life. Although we can, of course, still manifest a specific thing if that's what's needed and wanted. So, and I love that you were able to identify, right? We all get to identify, do I land more on one side or the other, which means that the other side needs to be cultivated, right? It needs to be cultivated so that it actually becomes this ongoing ability to move agilely between the two. What's called for here in this particular moment. So thank you so much for sharing. All right, we've got a comment here and then back there. And then over there. Okay, so we've got a bunch of comments here in the room.
Thank you, Jerry.
Okay, I'm Jerry.
Good
It
morning.
sounds like I can't even hear myself.
No, you can't. It's only for the people online. It's okay.
I am mostly, I'm in the habit of being mostly mechanical, but I do have an experience of how I can come back into more balance. Like in last week's class, you mentioned how things resolve themselves into a paradox. And unintentionally, I was in a paradox. I left here in a paradox about my attitude towards everyday life. And then I attended the Step Out in Faith class with Reverend Patty, and that really helped me get through things and coming back into balance, because what it got me back into is no, this is not just a dress rehearsal. What you do every day and you're creating every day is just as important as whatever I'm imagining that I'm getting ready for. So just having that attitude gives me back into balance, and it's useful because it gets me past the habit that I've been overcoming of procrastination.
Beautiful. I love that. And that is so powerful, Jerry. It is, but we tend to fixate on, well, I'm going to do my spiritual work and I'm going to manifest this particular thing. I'm going to manifest these, right? And we forget that it is the quality of our everyday living, right, that is unfolding. And ultimately, that's the whole point of all of this. It isn't just to manifest something. It is to recognize that this is happening whether we're paying attention to it or not. The creative process is happening all the time, whether we know it or not, whether we're paying attention to it or not. But when we pay attention to it, then we can recognize that how we're engaging every day is what is, in fact, creating our lives. And that what we are putting out and what we are receiving back. Beautiful. And it does bring us into more balance. Thank you so much, Jerry. All right, we had a comment back there and then over in the corner.
There's a microphone right next to you. Here you go.
Hi, my name is Patrick. I've actually been thinking a fair amount about this. I think as a child, I was much better at the more intuitive side of things, but I was kind of trained just by schooling and my family environment to be much more logical and, process oriented. If you do this and this and this and this and this, listening to all the productivity gurus, set goals, blah, blah, blah. And I've just found that throughout my life, when I do that, I just feel like I'm pushing against a brick wall. And when I finally, just get so exhausted I give up and just let go, that's when things start to fall into place. And lately, through meditation and other processes, I've learned to be happier and just be at peace in the moment. And things do seem to be starting to shift. And at the same time, there's still this part of me that keeps going, I'm not doing enough. I'm not being enough. I'm not worrying enough, and it's just like all of this training. It's like, it seems like when I was growing up and just being happy and in the moment, something would come along and say, why aren't you more worried? Why aren't you, this? And I'm like, okay, what do I need to do? What do I, and it doesn't work. But when I'm just happy and being in the moment and, I'm cool with that. And then things are starting to fall into place, and it's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's kind of cool to watch it unfold.
Cool.
So,
right. Beautiful. Thank you. So intention setting and working with the law is not the same as worrying. It's not the same as obsessing about something. It's not the same as this mental need to figure everything out and figure out how it's going to happen and set the steps in motion and do the goal setting so that you know how it's going to unfold. That's just going to get in the way, right? As Patrick has so beautifully said. And in the Tao, it's called Wei Wu Wei, to act without acting. The doing with non-doing, right? It doesn't mean that we don't do. It means that we do from a place of being. The way in which we do is a much more relaxed way, trusting that it is in fact unfolding. And I loved what you said about worry. Patrick, I remember years ago as I was really bound and determined to shift something in my life. I was healing myself of panic attacks. I was an obsessive manager of things, figuring things out and making them happen. I realized that worry was the tax I was paying to have things work out. I believed that if I didn't worry, that meant I didn't care, and therefore it wasn't going to work out. It was required of me to worry. And my worry was the way that somehow I showed somebody, the universe, God, I don't know, that I actually cared about it. So I actively worried about everything, right? And it made me crazy. And so when I began learning about spiritual detachment, I thought, well, that just means I don't care. No. It's the dual unity. It means I'm shifting my entire relationship with the nature of reality. Not my job to make it happen. It is my job to say, what direction am I going in? Because otherwise, the universe just uses whatever's back there to keep going in the same direction. And if I don't I'd like for it to go in a different direction. I do actually get to say, oh no, I think I'd like it going. I'd like to be healthier. Like to be a little happier, like to be a little wealthier, like to be a little more spiritually grounded, whatever it is, right? That's what we're doing, and that's what we're intending. That's the directionality. And then we're allowing the process to unfold. And so what a brilliant thing to realize. Worrying does absolutely nothing but get in the way and make us crazy and make us exhausted. And ultimately, we're focusing on the very thing we don't want, right? And so the magic of letting go of worry feels like, oh, that's the magic. I'll just let go and it'll all work out. Well, you are actually still participating in the process. You're still thinking about or intending which direction you want your life to unfold, which is happier, healthier, less stressful. I mean, that is the intention you're setting. But the letting go is the letting go of that thing that we do. And as you said, procrastination, right? It's called paralysis by analysis. Because we're so busy trying to figure it out, and we can't figure it out. We don't blah, 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 so we don't do anything. Blah, 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 we can't see anything, blah, 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 right? Analysis by paralysis. But when we let that go, the impress of life, love is moving through us. We participate in the process. We set our intentions, and we just start moving. And we move every day. And it becomes a much less effortful and stressful process. We're still part of it, though. It's just that we're not trying to make it all happen. All right, we have a comment in the back here. Okay, and so can we move a microphone over? You already have one.
Good morning.
Thank you. You guys are all on top of it.
Good morning. I'm Brenda.
Hi, Brenda.
Wow, what a great discussion, because this has really been up for me these last several months, this description of that dynamic balance and flux between being in the spiritual connectedness and being in the doingness. And I find that if I let that balance get too much one way or the other, then habit brings up resentments or duty and obligation rather than sacred service.
Yes.
And so I've been given a couple of gifts in some of the last couple of classes and counselings that I'm finding helpful. When that dynamic balance is beginning to shift and I'm aware that I'm becoming off base or I've become reactive. I'm a great worrier. So the tool is, first off, don't get caught up in the story. Take that emotion, and what is the spiritual principle of those 10 principles? What is the spiritual principle that is at dis-ease,
Right.
or feels violated or unfulfilled in this situation? And rather than focusing on all the angst of the situation, if I know what that need is, then I have many other tools of how to get there, and that helps me shift back into a more stable balance between that spirit connection and that earth doing this.
Beautiful. I love that. That is a beautiful explanation, Brenda, and why our spiritual tools are so important, because they basically recenter us where we are in the where the conduit or the fulcrum between that impress of life and then how we're aiming it and how we're moving in the world. But that's a really centered place, and we have to keep finding ways in which to find that, the release of worry and the coming back into the balance, right? So there's so many tools. I often use the tool of, is there anything I can do about this right now? Well, I tell you, at 3 o'clock in the morning, there's seldom something I can do about it. There's nothing I'm going to do about this, or I'm not going to call anybody at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm not going to, go march at 3 o'clock in the morning. Right? And so working with that, especially in the middle of the night, has taught me how to release that worry. That doesn't mean I'm not going to do something about it, but worrying about it to try to, when I can't do anything about it or it's not appropriate at that moment, is of no value. Then when the action comes, right, it's more in alignment with the impress of life. Oh, do this. And so, so the other thing is we're either stressing, manifestation, get your life together, or we're stressing, I'm just going to be one with the universe. Whatever God wants for me, I want for myself, right? And so we're either being or we're doing, and you've heard me say this, it cracks me up every time. Doobie 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 doo. I think they had it right in the 60s. Doobie 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 doo, right? Because we're in the dance. Because we're not just spiritual beings floating off into the nothingness, right? Into intangible reality, nor are we stuck in the purely human sense of separation where we have to make everything happen. Right? It's the dance, it's the balance. And for those of you who are familiar with the 4 kingdoms of consciousness, as far as I'm concerned, this is that 4th stage of consciousness. The first stage of consciousness is I am either on autopilot, unconscious, or a victim of life. It's happening to me. And it's all out there. Everything's happening to me and it's all out there. The second stage of consciousness is, oh, wait, I think I might be responsible for how some of this is playing out. I'm responsible for my thoughts, my feelings, my attitudes. I'm responsible for what I'm focusing on, right? And that is the place where we learn about self-responsibility and we learn about the tools of manifestation. The third kingdom of consciousness, or the third stage of consciousness, is, oh, wait, I guess it's really not me who's making all of this happen. There's actually a power and a presence that is the transcendent mystery, and I am a place where it's showing up and waking up, and I'm going to allow that impress. I'm going to start listening to that impress. I'm going to start seeing if all those things I said I wanted and needed to manifest are really what are going to make me happy, and I start listening to that. And ultimately, the 4th stage of consciousness is the stage, we get to it through the portal of transformation. When we recognize that both of these things are simultaneously true, and we are at one with both of them, and we're playing the dance, then we know that when we speak our word, we are speaking as life, as love, as that place of manifestation, and we can trust that the infinite mechanical laws are in fact going to take care of it. We don't have to figure it out. So the 4th stage of consciousness is all the skill sets we learned in the 2nd stage of consciousness and in the 3rd stage of consciousness come to full fruition. So any time that we really feel ourselves in a balance and we are paying attention to what's going on in our consciousness, we are in a state of enlightenment. So don't think that you have to be somebody who sits and meditates for 4 hours a day and be on a mountaintop somewhere to be enlightened. Anytime you are in that moment, you're enlightened. Of course, if you're like me, you fall right out of it again. And then we fall into it, and then we fall out of it. And then sometimes you have to just manifest, right? Because there's fear or there's anxiety, and so you use the skill sets of manifestation. Other times, you're like, hey, I don't know, and you're just in the flow, right? And you really bring forward your skill sets from the third stage of consciousness. But that place of balance where we're agilely moving and dancing with life and with the law, right? That's the fourth stage of consciousness. And yes, each one of us touches that moment by moment more and more. And the more deeply we do our spiritual practices, then we have those moments like Armando described, when the outside and the inside are actually beautiful reflections of each other. And then we know that the dance is happening until the next moment when we have to wake back up again. Beautiful. All right, well, join me for the celebration. We're going to explore this just a little bit more. We also have a very fabulous, fabulous guest, Gary Lynn Floyd, who moved away to Tahoe, of all places, and is doing fabulous work in California with New Thought Music, and just as amazing human being. So he's going to be here to do our music today. We're so grateful that he happened to be in town and wanted to come join us this morning. And then for those of you in DFW, please remember that tomorrow we have our observance for Martin Luther King Day from 11 to 2, the Dream Space, and we'd love to see you here. So this week, pay attention to the dance. Bye for now.